Okay, so this is the note-taking organizer that we're using at Howard Connect. I like to have colorful pens, just like the girl in the video, just because it helps my brain a lot. And I also like to have a collection of highlighters, just for keywords or ideas that your teacher might need you to know. Okay, so the first thing you're gonna do is write your name, your class subject, and then the date. If you wanted to write the name of the unit at the top, that would also be helpful. The first unit that we're doing is Origins, so I'm gonna write that at the top. The learning target comes from your teacher's board. Every classroom at Howard Connect has a learning target on the board. So when you get out your notes, the first thing you want to do is write that down. So this says, which core elements shape our capacity for growth? My teacher has said the word core elements like 100 times today, so I'm going to highlight that because there's something that I need to know about core elements, okay? The next thing that I see is the daily inquiry. This is also on your teacher's board. So I wrote down, what are the core elements of important maps and what do they tell us? There's that word core elements again. The girl in the video said not to highlight the whole word, but underline it so that you could still see it so it doesn't smear. That's a pretty good idea. Okay, and then another thing that I see here is maps. I'm also gonna like circle that because that tells me that my teacher's probably gonna teach me about maps today, and I'm right. Okay, the other thing is vocabulary. This will be on your teacher's board as well. When I came into social studies today, Miss Jones had these 4 words up on the board, so I just wrote them there. You can go back and color code those later with like your own system. So like, let's say I already know what a landform is, so I'm not gonna highlight that one, but I'm gonna highlight words I don't know. Like I definitely don't know what a plateau is, and I don't know what topography is. So you could also use your own system for words like maybe you use green on a word you totally know, and yellow on a word you kind of know, and pink on a word you just have no idea. So you can come up with your own system there, okay? And then this is the most important part of the lesson. When Miss Jones starts teaching, I'm gonna write down the main ideas and the topics that she's presenting in this box. And just like you learned in the video, you don't have to write down everything that Miss Jones says. You don't have to write complete sentences. You really just grab the main ideas of what she's talking about, okay? And then if you have questions for your teacher when she's talking, you're writing them in this box. We're not interrupting the teacher. We're not trying to make her day crazy by asking a bunch of questions. We're gonna write them here so that she can address those questions later, okay? So now Miss Jones is gonna start teaching, and I'm gonna show you how I write down the things that she is talking about.
Okay. Today we are going to talk about a couple important maps that we're going to look at over the whole year, okay? So the first one that we should talk about is called a physical map, right? When you think of physical, you think of maybe physical education and moving around and stuff. So physical is going to show you things that you might be able to touch or that sort of thing, okay? It's going to show you natural landforms, right? Physical maps. So we know that landforms are important parts of geography, right? So there's water and landforms. So on the physical map, you're going to see water labeled, oceans, seas, rivers, all of those things will be on a physical map. They'll be labeled. You'll also see all the mountains and plateaus and deserts, plains, coast, all of those things will be on a physical map because it's showing you all of the landforms. Okay, and usually a physical map has different colors, and those colors are really important because it shows elevation. And if you remember, elevation has to do with how high or how low something is, right? So a color could mean that it's really high. If the mountain is red, then it's probably going to be a really high elevation. Anytime you see red, you know it's going to be high. And if you see blue, and it's down by the river, then maybe that means that it's really low. Because remember, land towards the river is going to be lower than up on the mountain. Okay, so that's a physical land, that's a physical map. Sometimes we call those topographic maps. Topographic. So the second type of map that we'll talk about today is called a political map. And politics, when we think of those things, we think of like governments and different states and different countries and those types of things. And so a political map shows human creations, not the natural stuff, the human stuff. Human creations, okay? So it will show you the borders of different countries. So on a map, we could see China and its neighbor India, and we see them because it shows the border where one country ends and where another one begins. And you also see capital cities, or other cities labeled. Usually a capital city has like a star next to it, and the regular cities just have a little dot. And you're also going to see some highways, usually on a political map. It'll show you the different roads. People, way back before we used cell phones, looked at a political map to figure out how they were going to get from one place to another. Okay, so those are two big types of maps today.
Okay, so when Miss Jones was talking, okay, I did a couple of different things. The first thing is I changed colors when she seemed to change ideas, right? So the first thing she talked about was a physical map. I did that in blue. And then she talked about a political map. I did that in purple. I did confuse myself, though, because I wrote a note here in purple that goes with this one. So another thing I want to do is go back and look at my maps and then think about or look at my questions or my topics and make questions. So she said a physical map is natural landforms, and she gave me examples, right? Waters, oceans, seas. Immediately when I heard her say that, I thought, on a map, I wonder if all water is in blue. So I'm going to write that. I'm going to write all water features in blue. I didn't want to interrupt Miss Jones because she was really going for it, and I just wanted to kind of wait and see if once we go through this lesson, maybe I look at a couple maps and I'm like, okay, is that true or not? So maybe I go through my notes the next day, right? So Miss Jones has gone through, she showed us some maps, and I'm like, okay, I've discovered that all water on maps actually is blue. So I'm going to go back to my notes and just make a note like, yes, it is. So I'm answering my own question as I go through the lesson, okay? The other thing that I did was I didn't actually write down everything that she said. I'm using short things. So I wrote physical map equals natural landforms. Political map equals human creations. Like I'm not writing a full sentence. I'm doing it how I want to do it. You could draw pictures here. You could do any kind of way that works for your mind, okay? And then also that changing of colors is really important. When she was talking about a political map, okay, she did not talk to me about how borders looked, right? She said that capital cities were a star in a circle and that cities were a circle. I'm curious how borders are drawn. I also want to know how highways are drawn. So I'm going to write that over here in the side, and I'm going to keep all of my questions with the same color that I wrote the info, and then all my answers in a different color. So I know it like draws my eyes to, oh my gosh, I answered a question that I had in my mind, okay? So I want to know, how are borders shown? Like, are they using dotty lines? Are they using, what's the strategy, okay? And then let's say that Miss Jones actually talks about that later. So then I'm just going to go back and say borders, right, are drawn with a solid line, and actually roads are going to be drawn with a dotted line, for example, okay? So I'm going back and answering my question, and check it out. Like, that alerts your eyes, like, whoa, there's an answer there, all right? And then I'm also going to just go back to some of the vocab words and see, do I know it now, right? I didn't know this word topography at the beginning, but then she told me what it was. She was talking about how topography or topographic maps show you, where the mountains are and where it gets really flat. So now I know that word. I'm going to go back and, put it in a different color. So now maybe I'm going to put, a green box around it, whoa, I know that word now, okay? Plateau, she still did not talk about. So I'm going to write that down here, maybe on the physical map side, what is a plateau? Okay, what is a plateau? And why is it, not a hill? I'm curious, okay? And so this is my notes for the day. At the end of the day, your teacher should prompt you to give you the choice to answer today's question using what I've learned. Okay, so what are the core elements of important maps and what do they tell us? The important elements of important maps are what? It looks like they are natural landforms, right? Natural and human landforms, okay? So a natural landform is something that was there before humans were there, and then the borders, the capitals, the cities, the highways, that was built by humans, okay? And the other part of the question is, what do they tell us, okay? What do they tell us? Well, they tell us a lot of different things. I'm just going to list it. Like she talked about, it tells us elevation, right? They tell us also about the government and the society. Okay, and now I've done this. So these are my notes for the day. Now, the worst thing that you could possibly do is just take all of these beautiful notes and then shove them in a binder and never look at them again. It's bad juju, okay? You got to go back to them. You have to look at the notes again. The point of these is to go back, okay? So there's a question here that's still unanswered. What is a plateau? I still don't have that answered. So in my next class, maybe I'm going to ask a friend, like, hey, Mr. Grant, did you learn what a plateau is? He's like, yeah, it's a flat hill. Okay, so I'm taking my other color, I'm going to go back and say flat hill. That's on you to make sure that you go back and answer your own questions, okay? And then when Miss Jones says on Monday, we're going to have a test over maps, I'm busting this out. And I know that I can look at it and I can make all kind of other notes. I like to have the practice of like, if I did the notes using these pens, these 3 colors are the colors that I use today. If I'm going to go back and make more notes, I'm going to choose different colors. I'm going to do that so that I know that I revisited those notes, right? If you did everything in just straight black and then you went back 2 days later and wrote something new, you have no idea, like it doesn't help your brain alert it. So I would always try to encourage you to use different colors to kind of show information that when you're adding to it or when you're getting new ideas on the notes, okay? So just look at the notes one more time. And just notice all the strategies that I used. I used highlighters, I used different pen colors, I used boxes and stars and like drawings, and I just kind of made my notes look really cool. Now I'm gonna 3-hole punch these, and I'm gonna stick them in my binder behind the social studies folder, and then anytime my teacher talks about maps, I'm busting it out, okay? I hope that was helpful. Love you.